Who really pays the price when a luxury empire collapses? Is it the quiet men in the boardroom, the architects of business models, or the smiling sales director who shook your hand, remembered your birthday, and promised everything would be all right? As the GVE London scandal spiraled from showroom dreams to courtroom drama, one name surfaced again and again: George, the sales director. He wasn't the CEO, he didn't own the company, but for many customers, George was GVE London. He was the first voice they heard, the trusted guide through high-stakes deals, and the public face of a business that lived and died on reputation. When payments vanished, cars disappeared, and the administrator froze assets, angry owners didn't call the finance office, they called George. They shared screenshots of his WhatsApps, replayed his voice messages, and demanded answers, not from faceless executives, but from the man who'd promised, reassured, and delivered until he couldn't. Now, as the search for accountability explodes online and in legal circles, a more complicated question emerges. Is George responsible for GVE London's collapse? Did he cross the line from loyal employee to knowing participant? Or is he simply the most visible casualty of a much larger failure? Could he be sued or even face jail? Or is he, in the end, just a fall guy, a front man left behind while real power escapes through legal loopholes? This isn't just a story about one dealership or one man. It's about what happens when personal trust collides with systemic risk, when a trusted face becomes the focus of public rage, and when the law itself struggles to separate blame from scapegoating. Tonight, we ask, how far does a sales director's responsibility really go? Can charisma become criminal, or is George just the last man standing on a sinking ship? To understand how a sales director like George can end up at the center of a scandal, you first need to see how trust is built and sold in the world of luxury cars. In this industry, reputation is everything. Brands are only as strong as the promises kept by their people. A CEO may set the vision, and investors may provide capital, but it is the sales director who makes or breaks the bond with the client. Every handshake, every late-night phone call, every urgent text about a new arrival or a last-minute deal is part of the performance. The showrooms aren't just places to buy cars, they are theaters of trust, staged and curated for the wealthy, powerful, and emotionally invested. George thrived in this world. He wasn't just a salesman, he was a confidant, a problem solver, a man who knew which color Bentley would suit your collection and how to move mountains for a client's birthday delivery. For many owners, George was my guy at GVE, the one who could make things happen when the system moved too slow or the rules got in the way. He built relationships that felt more personal than professional, responding instantly to anxious texts, sending photos from the detailing bay, and smoothing over paperwork snags with promises and charm. But there's a darker side to this closeness. When delays happen or when money vanishes, the trust that made George invaluable now becomes a liability. Owners expect answers. They expect George to fix problems he didn't cause or to admit to things he may not have understood. Worse, the intimacy of these relationships can blur legal boundaries. Did George simply repeat management's assurances, or did he knowingly mislead? Did his comforting messages buy management more time to cover up bigger problems? Was he just doing his job, or did he become, wittingly or not, a participant in the deception? This is the tightrope every sales director walks, being trusted enough to close the deal, but often held responsible when it all falls apart.
Salesmanship is built on confidence, persuasion, and sometimes a little selective optimism. But in the wake of a collapse like GVE London's, courts and creditors want more than charm. They want accountability. So, where is the legal line? When does a sales director's reassuring message become actionable misrepresentation or even fraud? Under UK law, simply working for a company, no matter how visible, does not make you personally liable for its debts or business failures. If you're not a director, shareholder, or signatory to financial agreements, your exposure is limited. Yet, there are important exceptions. If a sales director knowingly makes false statements about a car's status, payment timeline, or the company's solvency, they can cross into misrepresentation. If it's proven that George deliberately lied to induce customers to sign, pay, or delay action, he could face civil lawsuits for damages. In extreme cases, where intent and knowledge are clear, criminal fraud charges are possible, though rare. It's a high bar. Proving that a sales director had knowledge of insolvency, conspired to deceive, or intended personal gain is difficult. Defense lawyers will argue that he was simply relaying information from management, acting on instructions, or himself misled by the system. Plaintiffs must show a pattern of knowing deceit, not just optimism or poor communication. Globally, few sales directors go to jail. Most are sued as part of broader civil actions, often escaping with reputational damage and a forced exit from the industry. Notable exceptions, such as directors at US dealer scandals or in Asian grey market schemes, were prosecuted only after evidence of active conspiracy, document falsification, or personal enrichment. For George, this is the crux. Did he know the true state of GVE's finances and choose to conceal it? Or was he just passing on reassurances he believed were true, doing his job as instructed? The difference determines not just his future in the business, but whether he deserves the public rage or a measure of sympathy.
Why does public outrage so often settle on the front man? The psychology is simple and brutal. People want someone they can see, hear, and blame. When an institution collapses, those behind the scenes retreat into silence and legal counsel. The face left exposed is the one the mob turns to, sometimes for catharsis, sometimes for justice. George became that face for GVE London. His WhatsApp messages, his reassuring tone, and his high visibility made him the lightning rod for customer anger. Human nature demands a villain, especially when victims feel powerless. He's the one who promised. He was always there. He could have warned us. It's a powerful narrative, but it isn't always true. There is a long history, both in business and beyond, of fall guys taking the blame for systemic failures. Psychologists call it the proximity bias. The person closest to the victim is often blamed most, regardless of actual power. In the luxury car world, where the sales director is not just a transaction agent, but a relationship manager, the effect is even stronger. Owners feel betrayed, not by a faceless corporation, but by someone who was almost a friend. Pressure on sales staff can be immense. In confidential interviews, ex-employees describe a toxic mix of loyalty and fear. To question management decisions is to risk your job. To warn clients is to risk being frozen out. Many staffers in high-stakes industries are told to keep the story straight, even when rumors swirl. The result is people like George get stuck between the hammer of client trust and the anvil of management secrecy. Some cross the line into active deceit. Others remain passive, repeating reassurances until the collapse overtakes them. In both cases, the public rarely pauses to consider nuance. Globally, similar scandals have played out. At C&C Motors in the US, a charismatic sales manager was vilified online while executives liquidated assets. In Japan's supercar king collapse, a popular sales rep became a national meme, yet the mastermind never faced charges. Is George guilty, or just guilty of being there? That's the hardest question of all.
While lawyers argue about contracts and forums debate blame, real lives are left in ruins. For George, and for many like him in scandals around the world, the collapse of GVE London didn't just end a job, it shattered a reputation built over decades. Overnight, he went from trusted advisor to public enemy. Social media filled with angry comments, private messages ranged from desperate pleas to outright threats. News sites posted his face alongside headlines about betrayal, collapse, and fraud. Even if never charged, the court of public opinion delivered a swift and lasting sentence: never trust this man again. The toll is more than professional. Family and friends are drawn into the storm. Children face questions at school. Spouses see income vanish. Years of hard work, loyalty, and relationship building become a punchline. One viral meme, one shared screenshot, and a reputation is gone. But George is not alone in this fallout. Customers lose more than cars or money, they lose faith. They replay every conversation, every handshake, wondering where trust became naivety. Some turn their backs on the luxury market forever. Other employees, from junior sales to office managers, also see careers evaporate. A once proud brand is now a cautionary tale. And yet, as the scandal fades, the system often stays the same. Owners are left to wait in legal limbo, hoping for pennies on the pound. Directors and shareholders who approved risky models often move on to new ventures. Regulators promise reform until the next collapse. What remains is bitterness and the question, was this tragedy inevitable, or could someone, George, management, the law, have acted sooner or braver to stop it?
Until there is change at every level, culture, contract, law, and personal ethics, another George will someday face another angry crowd, learning too late that being the front man is as risky as being the boss. As the story of GVE London slips from headlines, the question remains, what will actually change? For those burned, owners, staff, even George himself, the temptation is to demand punishment, to find closure in a single name or a simple verdict. But real accountability and real progress are harder to achieve. True reform starts with understanding where responsibility lies, and it's never just one person. For sales directors, the lesson is clear. Know the risks, document everything, and never let loyalty override your duty to tell clients the truth, even when it hurts your career. Trust is a currency, but it comes with legal and ethical strings attached. For management and shareholders, building a business on risky contracts, opaque accounting, and endless expansion is a recipe for collapse. Ignoring early warnings and pressuring staff to keep the story straight only deepens the damage. For owners and buyers, prestige is not protection. Before you hand over keys or cash, demand independent advice, real escrow, and transparent contracts, no matter how friendly the salesperson seems. For regulators, tougher oversight, better enforcement of sale or return rules, and clearer rules on personal liability for misleading conduct are needed. No more "it's just business" excuses when real people are left waiting, ruined, or scapegoated. And for the public, remember that blame is easy, but prevention is hard. Vilifying the front man solves nothing if the system that produced him remains unchanged. Real justice is not just about who falls, it's about who learns, who adapts, and who acts to protect the next generation from repeating these mistakes. The final word? George's story is a warning. Charisma without transparency, loyalty without ethics, and trust without checks are traps, no matter which side of the deal you're on. If you're in the luxury world, ask the hard questions. If you see the warning signs, act early. And if you're left holding the blame, remember, the only true way forward is to fix the system, not just the scapegoat. If this story made you think, subscribe for more true stories and let us know in the comments. Who do you believe is really responsible? What needs to change to protect everyone next time?